Hello and welcome to another episode of Nightcap with Nightcat, the show where we talk about toys, boys, and life's other joys. I am your host, Nightcat. Thank you so much for watching this brand new episode. I'm excited to have you here. We've got a great show coming up. I'm going to tell you about a Sweet 16 party for a snake. Plus, we're rescuing a dolphin. We're going to talk about a felony fart. And was Amelia Earhart eaten by crabs? We're going to talk about it in the CATSPIRACY Corner. Without any further ado, let's get into it. It's time for the LITTERBOX.
Ew, what stinks in here?
The LITTERBOX is the part of the show where I go through the stupid news and I only bring you back the best stuff. And I don't normally do a whole lot of feel-good stories, but I loved this so much. So obviously, the Earth is both at the same time somehow on fire and flooding. I mean, of biblical proportions, everything is in flames or underwater right now, including Louisiana, who was hit with Hurricane Ida last week. And in the process of all that happening, a neighborhood which was completely flooded saw a dolphin floating on through the streets, just like a pedestrian dolphin having a great time. They first spotted him swimming around last week, and then as the waters started to recede, the dolphin no longer had like a clear path out of the neighborhood back into wherever he came from, so he ended up getting trapped in this little pond. So SeaWorld and a bunch of like dolphin rescue organizations and aquariums, they all sent like their top people out there, and they were able to get the dolphin out of the pond, where they kept him. And I guess they kept him for like a little while just to make sure he wasn't injured or sick in any way, because, you know, if he was swimming through like industrial waste, who knows what that poor dolphin could have gotten himself into. Luckily, he was right as rain, and on Sunday, they released him back into the wild. The world is horrifying and scary all of the time, but every now and then you get just like a little nugget of hope, like, oh, well, at least one dolphin is okay. I think that's what's gonna have to last me for a while as far as good news goes. Felony assault charges have been dropped against a woman who pulled a knife on a man at a Dollar General. So that's like obviously a good part of the story, but the best part of the story is that he was yelling at her about a fart. The two of them, I guess, were in the Dollar General in 2018. This is a long time ago this happened. They were in the Dollar General together, and he was standing in line behind her, and she let out what he describes was like an ear-shattering, window-breaking fart. Like, it was next level, unworldly even. And listen, I don't know what this guy's deal is, because if I hear someone fart in public, I ignore it. I pretend like nothing is happening. I'm like, meh. Straight up Westworld style, doesn't look like anything to me. But he decides to get on her case about it, and he starts confronting her about it, and this breaks into a whole big fight between the two of them. And while they're fighting about this fart, I don't know if she's denying it or if she's just, you know, standing her ground. But at some point she reaches into her bag and she pulls a knife on him and informs him that she is gonna gut him. The police get there, they arrest the woman. She, I'm assuming, makes bail. I have no idea. I can't imagine she's been in jail since then, because this case just kept getting bounced around. And the prosecutors that were going after her for felony assault, they had a very uncooperative victim. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be done pre-trial, and this guy is not being helpful at all. He isn't showing up to court when he needs to. He's not giving the prosecutors what they need. So the prosecutors end up just dropping the case altogether because he was being incompliant. This woman got away with pulling a knife on a man and threatening to gut him after crop dusting the Dollar General, and she's not going to face criminal charges because this guy just didn't want to go to court. And finally, a Missouri Nature Center celebrated the sweet 16th birthday party for a two-headed snake. Check this out. This is crazy. So, this is pretty amazing for a couple of reasons. Number one, I guess black rat snakes, which is what this thing is, don't typically live longer than about 10 years. So the fact that they are, excuse me, I almost said she. The fact that they are 16 years old is already pretty impressive all in itself. But conjoined twins typically don't live as long as the average animal. That's especially true in the wild, because when you've got two heads trying to go different ways, that leaves you pretty vulnerable to predators. So if a snake's out there, he's got two heads, suddenly a predator sees it, they're trying to go opposite ways, cat dog style, can't do it, they get gobbled up. But actually being born and raised in captivity has saved this snake for a long, long time, and they had the best birthday party ever. Are you ready for this? Look at these cupcakes. Boom! So they did double-headed snake cupcakes, and they did like a little party and everything, and they talked about how important snakes are to the ecosystem, and you know how much I love a good snake. So I was pretty upset that I found out about this after it happened. But I'm gonna have to make some double-headed snake cupcakes, because those are just too cute. And that is the litter box. All right, I think it's time for us then to dive into the toy collection with another Sunken Treasure. Real quick, before we get into Sunken Treasure, I would like to quickly plug our Patreon, patreon.com/NightCat Show. If you have any ability to help support this show, to keep it going, not just this show, but also the true crime tours that I'm doing in downtown Salt Lake, and also the Curiosity Killed Nightcat true crime podcast. If you love what I'm making, all the stuff that I'm doing, consider supporting it by joining the Patreon. You can join at $3 or $5 a month. Patreon.com/NightCat Show. One of the things that you get when you become a Patreon patron is a shout out on the show. So I would like to give a sincere shout out to Braden Bailey. Thank you so much. Braden just pledged last week. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the fam. And Arbuckle Art. Thank you, Arbuckle Art. You all are just so wonderful. Join them. Become a member of the family. Patreon.com/NightCat Show. It would mean a lot if you had anything extra. And listen, I totally get it. Not everyone does. Lord knows I've been asked to donate to 1 million Patreons that I have not been able to donate to. But if you can, if you have the extra cash, it would really help me out a lot to continue making content for you. Patreon.com/NightCat Show. All right, Sunken Treasure. Sunken Treasure is where we go through my collection. I show you the coolest stuff. And I would like to show you one of my most prized parts of the Harry Potter collection. These are my foreign edition Harry Potter books. I'll tell you where it all got started. It got started with these puppies. These are the Russian edition Harry Potters. I got this full set for so cheap. I got all 7 books for $80, and I got them and was a little disappointed because the pages are like quarter sheets of paper. They're so thin. I'm afraid if I look at them wrong that they're gonna tear. But we got the whole set. We got Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone, if you're foreign and you're gonna be weird about it, Philosopher's Stone. We have Chamber of Secrets. All of them are the same as the Scholastic books that all of us Americans grew up reading. Prisoner of Azkaban, Goblet of Fire. We got Order of the Phoenix. We got Half-Blood Prince. And of course, the Deathly Hallows. Like I said, super cheap. I'm pretty sure they're counterfeit. I'm pretty sure they're some sort of knockoff. And I also can't read Russian, so it could be that I open up these pages and there's not a bit of Harry Potter in there. It could just be instructions for, I don't know, something Russian and terrifying. Hacking, maybe. Coming up next, I've got these two in Espanol, Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone, and the Chamber of Secrets. This one I really like because, and this is something that I'm weird about, and no other book collector is going to like this. They usually want them in pristine condition. But this one has a stamp from the Houston Library in Texas, which I think is just so fun. I love buying all of my stuff used or previously owned, and I love knowing some of the history about it. So knowing that this book was for Spanish speakers in Houston is pretty fun. I'm into it. I'll tell you something disappointing about the Harry Potter books in other languages, though, is that most of them do not have chapter art. Like, one of my favorite things about reading the books as a kid was checking out the next chapter art, and I would hold my horses so bad. I wanted to always skip forward and look at the next chapter art, but I never did it, and now I just don't even know what the incentive is to finish the chapter, quite frankly. Next, we've got, this is the newest one in the collection. So this is Harry Potter, Philosopher's Stone in simplified Chinese. On the back, it's in English there, so, you know, I don't know. I feel like I don't ever buy any books in dual languages, but I see this like all the time where it's done in English and then also in Chinese in a lot of things. I don't know anything about China or the Chinese language. But this is also a really interesting shape because it's almost more, it's huge, but it's really flat and wide, almost more like a textbook almost. But this one does have all of the chapter art and extra stuff. We got a cool little head wig there. Oh. So we got all sorts. It looks really, really cool. And who knows, maybe I'll fire up Duolingo and learn a little bit of Chinese so I can dig through this one. Even the letters are pretty. Even the letters are pretty. It's just too cool. Now here are my Bloomsbury. Bloomsbury was the UK, the British version, but it turns out that Bloomsbury also published them for like all of former UK or former Commonwealths or whatever. So think like Australia or Canada, still a Commonwealth, things like that. They were all the Bloomsbury books. So this is the Bloomsbury Australia. Even though it's the same cover as the other Bloomsbury books, this one was just the Australian edition. Then I've got 2 copies of Chamber of Secrets because I ordered this one for myself to have a good time with, and it was really cheap. And then I found this one at the DI for 75 cents, and what was I gonna do? Say no to a foreign book even though I already have it? I don't think so. But this one is Canadian according to the title page. Oh, I almost forgot my ticket to platform 9 3/4. You get back in there. So this one was printed in Canada for Canadian audiences, whereas this one was actually printed in England. And then I've got this Half-Blood Prince that I found at Savers one day. Hello, had to have it. So we got 2 Australians, a Canadian, and a UK version of all these books. And finally, we have a copy of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone. This one says Stein der Weisen, so I'm assuming that means Wizard Stone. I'm gonna go with Wizard Stone and piss everybody off. Harry Potter and the Wizard Stone. And this one is really, really nice. I don't know that it has ever been opened, but I am upset that the seller slapped this big, ugly sticker on. And I've got news for you. If you sell books, don't put stickers on them. Nothing infuriates me quite like a sticker on a book. I can't read like 80% of these books because I don't know any other language besides English because I was educated in the United States of America. But it doesn't stop them from being really, really cool. And if you ever find any Harry Potter foreign books, you just, you know who to call. You know who to holler at so that I can go track it down myself. Thank you so much. And that is Sunken Treasure. All right. Let's relive some trauma. I'm going to tell you another horrifying story from my past in NIGHTCAT Classic Tales. Wait, I have a drink. I can do this. NIGHTCAT Classic Tales. NIGHTCAT Classic Tales is the part of the show where I relive something horrifying from my past for your amusement. Now, this one happened when I started working as the general manager at a gym, at a Planet Fitness. I was a trainer at a gym for a couple of years, right after I got off of Biggest Loser. And I ended up taking the job as general manager down in Salt Lake because I was living way north at the time, and I didn't want to be a manager. Like, that's not something that I was interested in. But my mom had just had a stroke, and she was in a hospital here in Salt Lake, so I decided to take the job and move down here so that I could be closer. And, you know, 2 months after I moved, they moved her up to a different hospital in the town where I was living, so go figure. But just as I thought it was gonna be, it was horrible! This gym was in a rich area, and these people were nightmares. Oh my god, they came in and complained constantly. One time, the TV that played Fox News had been broken. So instead of just not having Fox News, like, you know, a normal person would just leave that TV out of order until a new one came in, I turned it on at the other end. I took one of the other channels off because I knew people liked the Fox News. I don't get it, but whatever. Well, this lady came up and screamed at me because I put the Fox News on at the end. Not that she couldn't watch it, but that she had to go to the end of the gym, and that she was not a second-class citizen, and then she started screaming, "We want fair and balanced! We want fair and balanced!" And then the entire gym, full of these gray-haired millionaires, start screaming as well, "We want fair and balanced!" Like I was keeping it from them. I'm like, it's on the TV! What do you want from me? What more could you possibly want? They wanted me to suddenly just magically go up and wave a wand and fix that TV so they could watch Fox News on the TV they usually watch it on. And that was just one day out of the hundreds that I spent there with those nightmare monsters. And despite having gone through all of this and knowing this about these people, you'd think that I would expect any kind of behavior out of them. But nothing prepared me for the email that I woke up to hungover after New Year. Let me just pull this up so I can read you exactly what it says. So this is a response to a club agreement. That's after they sign up, we send them an email letting them know everything, right? And this person responded to it. Here's the email for you. I pooped on the floor in the locker room. That was me. I did it because I was drunk, and I'm sorry. Hungover. I had to then call our janitor and ask how everything was going, and she was, you know, not happy about being there that day and cleaning up that man's feces off of the locker room floor. But God bless her, she stuck with me anyway. So thank you so much for being like the one person there that I could trust to handle things like that. Because none of my 16-year-old employees were about to go in there and clean that man's dookie off of the floor. And that is another Nightcat Classic Tale. All right, how's about you and I go read about conspiracy theories? It's time for the CATSPIRACY Corner. CATSPIRACY Corner is where I go through a popular conspiracy theory and I just, you know, give you the download, tell you what's going on with it. Hey, was Amelia Earhart eaten by 3-foot crabs? So, Amelia Earhart, first woman to fly the Atlantic. She was the first woman to fly from Hawaii to the continental United States, and she was going to be the first woman to go all the way around the world. And in the summer of 1937, she was on her way to Howland Island out in the Pacific. Somewhere along the way, they realized that they were low on fuel and they weren't sure that they were going to make it. And they lost track of the tiny island, because Howland, by the way, is 2 square miles. That is the entire island. It's 2 square miles. So I'd imagine that she'd have a hard time finding it, as well as piloting a plane which is almost out of fuel. And that's kind of where the story ends. The US government just sort of figured that she didn't make it to the island and sunk somewhere in the middle of the Pacific nearby, but went down hundreds, if not thousands of miles underneath the ocean and has not been recovered since. Some people believe that she actually landed somewhere on a barrier reef and was essentially a castaway until she died. So this reef is about 300 miles away from Howland Island, which is where she was going. And the crazy thing is, a number of distress calls came from the plane in that area. But search parties went out there and they looked everywhere, couldn't find even a smidgen of evidence that a plane had gone down there recently, and they just chalked it up to a hoax. There were 120 distress calls from that area that they were like, yeah, it's probably just a fake thing. Everyone's just a hoax. Everyone's trying to get in the news or whatever. But in 2012, researchers presented new evidence that suggested that at least 57 of those distress calls were credible and were from Amelia Earhart. So there is strong evidence to suggest that at some point she landed that plane and there were wheels on the ground while they called for help, and they were just never discovered. So a lot of people believe that she actually did manage to land on or near an island nation called Kiribati, and her distress signals were just kind of ignored. Well, in 1940, a group of English settlers were exploring that area, looking to, you know, colonize, because that's what the British did all the time, constantly, no matter what. It's just steal things from other people, and it's ruined the world forever since. But these British explorers found a skeleton, so they packed it up and they sent it to a doctor in Fiji. And this doctor did a bunch of measurements, took a bunch of notes, and determined that they were the bones from a European male. And everyone's like, oh, well, if it was a man, it couldn't have been Amelia Earhart, and just sort of, you know, ignored it. But that doctor could have been completely wrong, because the forensic study of bones at the time was still in development, and he might not have had all the information he needed to make a fair determination. So in 2018, another research group poured through his notes and his measurements and everything and determined that they were actually probably from a female of European or white descent. And in fact, when he compared the measurements to photos and known documentation of Amelia Earhart, he said, quote, Earhart's body is more similar to the bones than 99% of people in a large sample size. So there's a very good chance that those bones were hers, even though they have since been lost to the ravages of time for a really long time. So remember that this is by no means completely foolproof. This guy went from a doctor's notes from like 80 years ago in order to get this answer. So I'm not gonna say definitively that I think he's correct either. Some people believe that those were Amelia Earhart's bones and that the rest of them, because they only found 13 total, and the rest of the bones had just been scattered. But then they were like, well, there aren't a whole lot of large predators or scavengers here on this island, so where did the other bones go then? Like, how did they get scattered? Yet another group of researchers took a pig out. I think these ones were actually from National Geographic. They took a pig out, threw it on the beach, and then just watched to see what would happen, this pig carcass. Coconut crabs, enormous. Like, they get up to like 3.5 feet. They're huge. Coconut crabs crawled up onto the beach and started eating and dismembering the pig. So they would just take apart and then they'd scurry off to eat it somewhere else. So this new theory, despite the fact that no plane was ever recovered, and we're pretty sure that plane is down at the bottom of the ocean somewhere, some people believe that she successfully landed, died a castaway, and was pulled apart by crabs in the middle of the ocean. Which, to be completely honest with you, I can't refute. And that is another episode of Nightcap with Nightcat. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something new. Hey, real quick before I let you go, there are a couple things I want to tell you about, including that there are new episodes of Curiosity Killed Nightcat, the true crime companion podcast to this series. If you want more of that, look for Curiosity Killed Nightcat on your favorite podcast directory. You can also look at the link tree in the description of this video, linktr.ee/JacksonWitt. If you click on that, you'll be able to find the more recent episodes of Curiosity Killed Nightcat. I decided that it would be kind of fun if we ended the episode with a little preview, a quick clip, if you will, of the upcoming episode. So this is episode 15 of Curiosity Killed Nightcat. It drops this Friday everywhere you listen to your podcasts. And it is about a cannibal serial killer that I had never heard about, but I found a book called Born Evil at the thrift store, and I was like, well, I gotta read about this guy. He's a serial killer cannibal. And, I couldn't put it down. I finished it in like 3 days. It was so good. So here's just a little clip of that episode. Enjoy it. They bring him in for questioning. He immediately asks for his lawyer. If that happens, you have to let them have their lawyer, because anything they say without a lawyer after they've asked for one is not admissible. So they could have ruined the entire case doing this, but they said, no, you can't have your lawyer. We're going to talk. And they try a million kind of tactics. First, they send in 2 women officers, 2 ladies, who basically try to molest the answer out of him. Oh, like they ask him all sorts of questions about his sexual preferences, and they're like rubbing up on him. They're saying they're on his side, they're gonna help him, but he's not being very helpful. And anytime they ask him a question, his answer is always, you can talk to my lawyer about that. I want my lawyer. I want my lawyer. They end up bringing in his one-eyed teddy bear, and they're like, won't you tell me? And they like do the voice of the teddy bear. Won't you tell me? Tell me what happened. And Haddon's just like, well, if the bear would like to talk to my lawyer, the bear can talk to my lawyer. And he is just stone-faced. Again, this is not his first rodeo through the criminal justice system. So the women leave the room. They leave the bear on the table. And at one point, Haddon turns to the bear and he goes, ugh, I don't think I'm getting out of this one. Which the officers on the other side of the two-way mirror could absolutely see him do. So they're like, all right, good, we're cracking him. Again, subscribe to Curiosity Killed Nightcat wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye, bye, bye.